All right, we're live. Cool. All right, so welcome everybody to the May edition of the DNN Hangout. You may notice that we're missing somebody right now, Mr. Joe Brinkman. He had another appointment that he was at, and he's on his way right now, so we'll see him soon. But he's not here at the moment. So I had successfully, my plan is successful. I almost have him out. Before we get started with our guest, we got some ups. Well, actually, before we do that, I do have to introduce myself. So if this is your first time watching our DNN Hangout, I am Will Stroll. Welcome. You can contact me at my Twitter right there. It's at Will Stroll on Twitter. So if you have any questions about the Hangout or questions for our guest or during the interview or anything like that, feel free to use that, and I'll see that and I'll ask and I'll repeat your question and answer it. The other way that you can do it, you can just hashtag DNN Hangout and we'll get to you that way. So the next thing is we got some upcoming episodes. So we have a top secret episode. Not even I know the content or the speaker of next month's episode. The only thing I'm allowed to say or have been allowed to be known or know is that it's a Microsoft guest. So I'm guessing it's pretty exciting. Maybe we'll have Hanselman or something. That'd be great. But that's next month, June. It should be the second Wednesday of June. I need to confirm that. Then the month following that, July 8th, we're going to have Mitch Sellers. So if you've been around DNN for a while, you probably have heard that name. He is a published author and a DNN MVP, among other things. And he's going to be talking about all the different ways you can extend DNN, which is one of my favorite topics because I've done a lot of on-site stuff with people. And it's amazing to see how many ways they try to do things, not realizing they can just do it in DNN and do it faster. So we have that. And then in August, this is still to be confirmed, but Philip Becker, so one of the members or co-founding members of DNN Connect, he should be talking to us about how to build a social website using DNN platform. So probably all free features to build your own community on DNN. Now after that, we're pretty much open. So if you have anything cool to show us or anything to talk about or anything at all, feel free to let us know, and we'd love to have you on the show. So you contact myself, contact Joe Brinkman, and we'll get you on the show. So that being said, we're going to now introduce our esteemed guest. We have Mr. Mandeep Singh on here. Welcome to the show, Mandeep.
Thanks, Will. Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. You've been around DNN for a long, long time. So Mandeep, he founded Mandeeps, so that's mandeeps.com in 2003. He operates as a CEO, and I imagine many other things probably at Mandeeps. He has a team of about 8 people that's bringing you lots of modules and at least one skin that I'm aware of. And so you might recognize him from extensions like Live Blog, Live Tabs, and the Porto skin. Those are things that I see talked about a lot, so I'm guessing those are some of your more popular extensions. Yeah, and personally, I'm a fan. For those that don't know, on my website, willstroll.com, I am a very much a fan and user of Live Blog myself. So one of the things that people may or may not know about Mandeeps is that you're an Evoke preferred vendor. So I was figuring maybe starting there. What was it like? What was the process like to become an Evoke vendor?
So to be a Evoke preferred vendor, one of the preliminary criteria is to, of course, your extensions need to pass through EVS, which is an extension verification service that DNN offers, which basically tests your extensions to make sure that it's cloud compatible and some of the best practices and so forth. More so recently is the DNN store wants to make sure that they have few clients actually running your extension, and they try and get some feedback through them, make sure your product's actually working and there's no errors and issues and so forth. They also look at your reviews, see how long the product has been in market and what people have to say about it. So it's not like a one simple rule or a simple request to get it. So it's like a holistic approach. They look at from several different angles. We have several of our products in Evoke preferred products, and I believe if you have one or more products, you are an Evoke preferred vendor.
Awesome. So would you say it was a long process, a short process? Was it tenuous? Was it easy? Like what was your experience?
So it's like I said, there's nothing right there for us as a vendor to go and say we want to be a eWork preferred vendor. We want to have one of our products classified or certified as eWork preferred. So it's a invite based program at this time. DNN Store sends you an invite, or they ask you that, hey, we want to have some of your products as eWork preferred, and if they are not uh, they don't pass CVS or there's issues, then they will work with us to get those certified and move from them. Um, at one of our recent products, Live Forms, which was our latest entry into the modules, we actually sent a request to DNN Store to have it included in eWork Preferred. We already had a few clients who were using it in their eWork installations. I tested and passed all their US testing. So I believe as of today or as of a couple days ago, it was listed as eWork Preferred vendor product as well.
Oh, congratulations! Yeah, we use Liveforms. I forget where we use it. I have used Liveforms. It works very well. So before I step back, because I do want to step back and kind of get to the root of like you being in the community. But before we do that, like one of in preparing for this interview, and that, you made that difficult, by the way. You don't have a lot about yourself out there, and there's a lot of Mandeep Singhs out there too. So but one of the quotes I found on somebody who had reviewed your products is that and this is probably one of the better quotes you could probably have as any type of software vendor, but it says deceptively simple, technically sophisticated, and extremely well designed.
Oh,
What
actually,
would you
that is
say
one of
that
the
you
good
do?
ones I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I
So what
wasn't
would you
aware
say
of
that
that
you
one, so.
Yeah, it was from Eric Swansea, and it's not on the store or anything. It's on his website, at swansea.com, and I'll post that among all the other things that we're talking about in the show notes. What would you say that you and your team do that may or may not be different than what other people do to be able to get a quote like that?
Well, the entire vision behind the company, or it has been past few years, is to make the product simple to use. It has to. I mean, the functionality got to be there. That's a given now. If you got to compete in today's time, the functionality and like I said, the technical sophistication has to be there. There's no questions about it. That's a given. So the only way we could diversify or outcompete our competition basically is to make sure that software is extremely easy to maintain, extremely easy to use, virtually intuitive basically to use. You don't have to fall back to 200 pages manual just to take and set up your product. So that has been our foundation basically. If you look at most of our modules, the backend user interface is consistent across all of them. So if you've mastered one, you've mastered pretty much all of them. And with our new Lifeforms module, we took it even a step forward and trying to make it even more simple. A lot of the technical jargon that we as developers love to use, the end user does not relate to it. And over the years we've been doing this, we get emails, okay, great, your photo skin is responsive. What the heck does that mean? We get those questions all day long because an end user still may not know that technical jargon. So we try our level best to go ahead and bridge that gap and make sure that we're not using much of technical jargon in terms of the actual front end user interface that the end user uses. Now, a lot of developers, buy these modules, they integrate the site, they put it up, but actually it's the end user who's the content administrator who's actually going and using it. And I believe still in the marketplace, there's a lot of modules that are not designed with that in mind. They're still designed that it's the integrator or the developer who are actually going to be configuring this, which is great. But who's going to be managing it? That's a separate story.
Yeah, so you said two different things. In the beginning of that, you said easy to use and easy to maintain. Would you say those things are the same thing or different? What would you say the difference is between those?
So when I say easy to use, it's kind of twofold story. I'm kind of including the easy to maintain in it, but easy to use is easy to install, it's easy to configure, it's easy to understand. So there's not a big learning curve there. And then when I say easy to maintain, it's about that ongoing maintenance where someone's going and using, for example, blog. When you have your blog module configured and set up, and you've configured all the widgets to look, and you've probably added some blog rules in there, you're done. That's setting up the module. But a content managers will still go every day, click on write new post, and he's been working day to day and writing new post, and that's what I call easy to maintain. Now, if there's still hoops of clicks and things he has to do to get that simple blog post posted, that's not very easy. To add on to that, for example, let's just talk about live blog. When you're writing a post, live blog lets you, with one click, post it to Twitter, add it to Facebook, post it to your DNN journal at the same time. So that's kind of easy to maintain that we're talking about. It's for the end user, it should be very easy and seamless experience.
So one of the things that that you said quite a few times is end user. Who would you say when you get a new sale of one of your extensions? Who would you say is either primarily the person buying or the person that you're targeting when you're selling one of your extensions?
And that's the tricky business in this module development. The people buying our product are not the end users, at least 90% of the time. You still have that 10% section where, you know, hobbyists or people who are building their own personal websites, or they have very limited budgets and they're trying to do it on their own. But majority of the time, our customers are actually web integration companies, you know, web design and web development companies who buy the products from us. They set up a site for their client, which is actually the end user. So we have to develop the modules and extensions with both stakeholders in mind. The developers, the integrators, or the people who are actually installing and configuring, and the actual end users going to be using the product.
Awesome. So these are so did I get the number of people on your team right? Because I pulled that direct from your website. So you're a team of about 8 people, and you focus just on building DNN extensions.
That is correct. We are 8 people, not including me, so that would be 9 if I include myself in the team. We have about 5 developers and 3 designers at this point. And they're full-time on DNN development. We don't do anything else. As a matter of fact, we turn down a lot of custom work because we don't have resources to accommodate that.
So when you say DNN development, you mean maintaining these products that you build for your customers, and you turn down the work to like build websites.
That's correct. I mean, we would certainly take custom projects, and most of them those are along the lines of, can you customize your product to do this or do that? Can we take your product, integrate it into our legacy systems? Can you take your products, or can you take DNN and then integrate with a third-party system and so forth? So we will pick up some of those projects, but we would get a lot of requests for, could you design our website, or could you create a website? So we don't want to get into the integration business at this time. We just don't have the resources. I would say 70% of our time is devoted to our commercial products, maintaining them and working on the new versions and actually newer products. And about 30% of time we are in custom development. That has actually increased a little bit recently because of our introduction of our DNN themes. Anyone who uses our DNN themes now wants some of the customization done in terms of design. And that is something that we feel we're obliged to take over because it is our product and we take responsibility for it, versus telling them go have someone else do it. So we do take a lot of custom projects now in terms of customizing the designs for our end users. Hey, Joe.
Speaking of end users.
Yeah, he just popped out of nowhere.
Welcome to the Hangout, Joe. How you doing?
Thank you. Doing good. Figured I'd join in and see what you guys were up to today.
Well, luckily you joined now because we were talking about you earlier, and I'm not going to say what Mandeep said about you, but it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, just blame. Just turn it around. Where's your stick? Right there. You know that point finger.
We all know it was Will who was doing the talking.
It was you. Yep. So we're nearing the end of the interview with Mandeep. I do want to turn around. We've basically just been talking about the company and the products that you build, and so you've been using DNN pretty much since the beginning, from what I can tell. So when did you find DNN, and what about it like had that light bulb or that spark that made you want to start using it?
Sure. So Mandeeps.com actually happened to be a personal website, hence the name Mandeeps.com is my first name and last initial. And I was running PHP Nuke to run that website. I believe this is back in 2001 or 2002, something like that. And that's about the time I started getting into .NET and just learning. I was finishing my bachelor's computer engineering, I believe, in 2002 or somewhere around there. I can't recall now. It's been too long. But wanted to get into .NET and convert my personal site over to .NET. So that's where .NET Nuke popped up, and I was first introduced to it. I believe it was still transitioning from iBuySpy portal to DNN at that time. So that was my first introduction. Then I believe in 2003, I had already moved some of our corporate websites, the company I was consulting and working for, to DNN. I believe this was DNN 3 at that point, something along those lines. And we just need a simple module to protect the intellectual property, some of the images on the page, and there was a module on the DNN store which was $20 for no right click or something like that, to basically block the right clicks on the page. I ended up coding that in 2 hours, putting on Snow Covered. At that time it was called for $2 instead of $20. Didn't get a sale for 6 months. One day out of blue just changed the price to $20, and I got 5 sales that day or something like that. So very soon it was just that one module was generating enough income to buy or lease the car. So I thought a potential in there and started building up a portfolio of module. And I believe in 2008 we turned the stream and open office in India where we had more dedicated support and stuff. And we've been doing that since then.
Wow, that's quite a story. So when you found DNN, you were transitioning out of PHP Nuke, but was there anything specific about DNN itself where you're like, oh, hey, this is great, I'm going to use this? Because some people, they started building their own things in .NET. Other people found iBuySpy like we did, and they ended up coming back to DNN at some point. Was there something about it? Was it just that because it was .NET? Was it the marketplace that ended up coming up? What about DNN was it that really sparked?
For personal reasons, for me personally, sorry, it was just that I was looking for a .NET platform, and I was looking something that would replace PHP Nuke. PHP Nuke had that very nice, similar to DNN way of adding widgets, which we call modules in DNN and so forth, moving things around on the page. So I was just at that time looking for a replacement that I can use and grow from and learn from. So DNN fit the bill at that time perfectly, and I think this is something about the product and its extensibility and its strong foundation that I never had to look elsewhere since then. So whatever the needs be, DNN from one end or another is able to solve and meet those requirements.
Awesome. So do you still have the no-click module, no right-click module?
No, we don't. I believe it was decommissioned long ago, but we do have something called page protection that was a upgraded version of that and still actually sells on the DNN store. It's called page protection, and it's still there. Yeah, it's not paying the bills anymore, and we probably get a sale every now and then, but it's still there. Yeah.
I always find it funny when people have no right click on their page, because I still run into that every now and then. Like yeah. That stops anything. I don't know.
And again, it goes into one of those things. As developers and integrators, we probably understand there's not much value to it, but that end user, that business owner who's actually paying for that website, he's going to insist, I want that. So, okay, have it.
Yeah. And I want the flashy marquee as well. Mr. Joe, do you have any questions for Mr. Mandeep?
Not just yet. I'm just still trying to get caught up on a few things. Just coming back into the office this afternoon. So.
No worries, no worries. All right. So let's go ahead and transition away from the interview portion. You've been interviewed quite well by Adderson, and I'll be putting that interview into the show notes, so I'm not going to spend any more time on that. But thank you for that. So we're going to transition into news, and so the first thing in the news is that I want to put out there is the training working group. Hey, I'm the leader of that. I'm still looking for people that want to help with that. So if you have an hour a week or something like that, a couple hours a month, and you want to help do things like maybe put together hangouts like this or virtual hangout that we're planning, or you want to help update things in the wiki, creating documentation or anything that helps people know more about DNN, that's pretty much what we cover. You can be a developer, you can be a documenter, you can be a tester. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could get you to help us with. One of the things that got me into DNN was that in order to make me more successful, other people were helping me, and so I wanted to give back, and so that's why I do things like the Hangout is that giving back aspect. So if you want to give back, this is one way you can do it.
Hey, speaking of that, Will, there was something that may not have come up earlier in the announcements, and it was something that we just pushed sort of in the background this week. But if you go to dnnsoftware.com/DNN-API, you can now see the latest and greatest API documentation is live on the website again. So we'll be updating that with every release. So speaking of documentation and training, I thought that might be a good segue.
What was the URL again?
dnnsoftware.com/DNN-API. And so that's effectively all of the Sandcastle documentation that we generate with every release. You can usually download it off the downloads page, or now you can get it directly online and just navigate to it. And we'll keep the latest one up on that link, and we'll be updating this to do some additional branding and integrate it a little bit better into the website. But it just went live this week, so.
Very cool. Yeah, the documentation for the API has become increasingly more useful. I don't look at it very often simply because I've been using it for so long, but the minimal amount of times I have gone to look at it recently, it's been very helpful.
Yeah, we're doing what we can to keep things documented. There's still lots of areas where we could use help. So if you care about API documentation, that's certainly an area where the training team could use some help. So.
Awesome. Sounds good. Now I'm about to transition into events, and one event that like Joe said, something happened under the radar. Another thing happened under the radar. We had an out-of-band hangout last week. We did it twice. But
we liked it so much the first time.
But the second time worked out great. But we didn't really announce it a whole lot. But it was all about the process that is taken when you are doing pull requests, and so I was waiting for this hangout to announce that one, and so I'm going to put those both out with the show notes after this hangout. So we'll have them both in the same announcement. But you probably will see more of those out of band ones where we're going to talk about something special. So, and if you have any requests, feel free again, contact us via Twitter or whatever else in the comments for this broadcast, and we accept all ideas. Well, we accept ideas. Doesn't mean necessarily we can do it. So some other news. So DNN Connect, I think they might have still like maybe 5 seats left, but that's happening in Millau, France. When I don't have the folks from there on the call, I sometimes forget how to say that. But it's in southern France from May 28th to the 31st. And one of the keynote speakers is with us, Mr. Joe Brinkman. He's going to be doing a keynote, but first would be I don't know if it's Elin or Eileen Lipton. And
yeah, close enough.
Yeah, it's not Will, I know that. But he's an engineering manager at Microsoft. He's been working on the ASP.NET and Entity Framework teams, and he's been at Microsoft working on that kind of stuff for 12 plus years. And so he's going to come probably with some really cool stuff, especially considering that ASP.NET vNext is coming out, and vNext is probably the hashtag for that entire event. So we're going to be talking about, or at DNN Connect, it'll be talking about vNext for ASP.NET and whatever that means for DNN. So it's really important. And speaking of that event, speakers and sessions and schedules were just announced this past week, and so we'll put links to those over in the show notes, including poster sessions. So if you're not currently a speaker, you can still have a poster session, especially if you're a vendor of some kind. That's what the poster sessions are primarily for, and I'll put information about that in the show notes as well. DNN Connect, or excuse me, DNN Con. We're still looking for somebody to do that this year. So if you want to do that in your own area, just let me know, and we'll get you set up with all the resources and support that you need to make that happen. Let's see here. So some other news. I'm just going to mention a couple of the blogs, but I have plenty that I thought were noteworthy that I'm going to put into the show notes. But we have a vendor interview, another one from Addison Oliveira, with Tracy Wittenkeller of T-Works. And Tracy, just like Mandeep, it has been with the community for a long time, pretty much since the beginning as well. And he's literally written the book at least once about skinning with DNN. And so it's a great interview. We also have a great blog by Bruce Chapman about building SPA, or single-page application modules, using Razor and Web API, and that's getting a lot of attention. And let's see here, some extension releases that I saw announced above and beyond Mandeep, of course. We're going to be talking about live forums in just a minute. But I noticed that EasyDNN News had a release. User Manager Pro, never used or seen that one before, but that has a release recently. RevIndex Storefront, it looks like they had a pretty big release in their 7.2 release that just went out. Let's see here, Classified Pro 8.3. I also don't know much about that one. That one went out. And 260 Content. Unless you live under a rock, you probably know that went out. And 7.0 has some stuff in there that seems to be pretty cool. I haven't played with it yet, but with some sort of a visual jQuery designer. So it looks pretty neat. Did you guys notice any other announcements in the community that you might want to bring up? Anything about maybe releases or anything?
Yeah, so we've got DNN 7.4.1. So unfortunately, we're having a few issues, not with 7.4.1, but with some of the stuff going on with Evoke. We need a little more time to do some testing and to do some cleanup. And so that is actually going to push out to the end of May. So we'll release that just before the conference. And we'll have it looks like we'll have a special module that we'll be publishing next week, and I'll put more out about that in the blog post coming out on Monday. So definitely got some good stuff coming up. So those are the biggest release-related announcements that we have at the moment.
A special module. That sounds ominous.
Yeah. No, not ominous. So everyone knows that we had a security notice that we put out last week. So we're just going to be basically taking the best practices that we suggested last week, incorporating that into a module along with some other security best practices, and basically putting out a module that helps people apply and enforce good security practices on their own websites. And then we'll incorporate that subsequently into 7.4.1 and later releases. But we want to get some of these security related stuff out there and make sure people feel comfortable about the security and stability of the platform. And we originally planned for all of this to be part of 7.4.1, and since that's pushed out a couple of weeks, we felt we could do this in the meantime and still provide a lot of value to people in the security area. So
when you say it's going to be in 7, or when you said that comment about 7.4.1, I'm not sure it was clear. Are you saying it's going to be part of the default install?
It will be part of the default install, but we're also going to release the module itself out of band ahead of that release, so that we can we can get the while the fix to secure your site is relatively straightforward, and there's lots of other mitigations in place to help protect people. We still want to make it as easy as possible for people to make sure that they're secure, and to make sure that they're running the latest and greatest bits that they need to run a secure website. And it's one thing to put out, follow these 2 steps or these 5 steps or whatever it is for a given security issue. It's another just to say, here, install this on your site and you'll be fine, right? Because one requires people to read and actually take action. The other one just requires them to install something and it's done. So, and in fact, that module that we're going to release actually it will run on any DNN 6.2 or later version of the website. So,
awesome. That sounds great. So that's one of the things. One of the things you mentioned, though, is something I kind of wanted to highlight is that it's not enough to know and be aware of there's a security release out there, but one of the easiest things in the world that you can do to mitigate some of these security issues is just to stay updated, right? And just
right.
Upgrade DNN, upgrade the extensions on your site on a regular basis.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. We get a lot of people who say, oh, my site's been hacked, or people who say, how do I know if my site's been hacked? And it's interesting to me that there are a lot of people in the web world who just don't have exposure to what some good standard security best practices are. One that I know for a long time is check your hosts. Make sure that everyone who is a host should be a host. Make sure that you know who owns all of those accounts. The same with your administrators, right? So just do a standard security audit, periodically, to make sure that the configuration of your website is secure and that you know who it is that has the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. And
yeah, sounds like we need a broadcast just for this.
Yeah, I think security is a good topic. Some people it may be a little dry and boring, but security is not one of those things where you want to be involved in the exciting part, because the exciting part happens when your site suddenly hacked and you're trying to figure out when it occurred and what did they change and how do I fix it. And while it's exciting, it's not a good kind of exciting.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's not necessarily the word I would use for that.
well, it definitely gets your blood pressure going and your heart racing, and certainly gets you a lot of attention from the boss. So, but it may not be the way that you want. So anyway, there's definitely some things that we can suggest and we can show people how to do, and that's part of why we're building this module, not just for this particular security issue, but to really bring security more to the forefront in DNN and to our user community and stuff, because it is so important. And you hear about sites getting hacked all the time. Fortunately, most of them are not DNN sites. PHP. So that's it. It's just giving people more tools to help them to do a better job of securing their sites. So.
Yep. So we're going to need a transition so we have enough time for Mandeep to do his part with live forms. So real quick, let's go ahead and I'm going to show the site of the month for this month, and our contribution this time was, and you guys can see my screen okay, right? Wait, no, I have to present to everyone. Oh, there's that double click you're telling me about, Joe.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Otherwise, we'll be re-recording this session.
Yeah. All right. So right now we're looking at the Girl Scouts of America website, I think. This works weird when I'm looking at this. Okay, here we go. So this is a Girl Scouts of Eastern Missouri. So this is a regional website for Girl Scouts of America, and this is also a site that is responsive. Actually, I need to refresh So there we go. So it's responsive, so it works very well on responsive resolution. So it looks like they took the mobile first approach. And some of the extensions that I noticed that they were using include content injection. I see that module used a lot. I didn't, when I created it, I was just solving one of my own problems. I had no idea people were going to be using it, but I see it on almost every DNN site I look at. So maybe I should put that in a store. Let's see, DNN Events module, so another core module. They're using DNN Go Style Switch, which comes with their skin that they're using, which I think is also by DNN Go. It's called Unlimited Color Pack 16. You gotta love some of these skin names out there. And DNN Go Power Forms and DNN iframe module. I didn't really see anything else, and I didn't even see any custom modules or anything. This looks like pretty much all out-of-the-box stuff, but it's a very well put-together site. But some of their stuff does go off-site. So like you can see that if I'm going to register, I go through a whole other process, and I believe at the end of it you come back here. But it's a nice-looking site. All right. So that being said, let me stop showing the screen, and hey, there I am. So at this point, we're going to talk about live forms. So on mandeeps.com, live forms was announced like a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago, and it looks like you are taking that quote seriously that you didn't know about that I mentioned earlier. You have taken the creation of forms to a whole nother level for people that are going to be managing a website. So take it away, Mandeeps.
Yeah, certainly. Let me go ahead and share my screen here, so let me know when you can see it.
Yep, I can see it now.
All right, great. Let me switch over to...
Hey, that looks familiar.
Yes, Joe, that should look pretty familiar. That is the default page of DNN installation, and I just have another page here for live forms demo. Well, you talk for so long that the site kicked me out, so I have to re-log in.
Wow, that's one way to say that.
All right, there we go. So I have live forms on the page already here, and I'm just gonna do a little bit a basic demo here, and then we'll go from based on the questions or any questions you or Joe have. So we go from there. Simple one user interface to take you to manage. The first thing you see is a designer that lets you design your form. It is truly a drag and drop, so I can go ahead and drag a heading, and I can say this is going to be a contact us form, and I may need a text box, but I can actually do better. I can say I need a full name, so that gives me a first name, last name, and if you want a middle name, you can add that, and if you want a prefix, suffix, and so forth. Just by that, as you can see, the point I was making, it is very intuitive and it's very easy for an end user to use. You drop the full name, they need a middle name, they click on that, they need a prefix, suffix. Is this a required field? Just click right here. One other thing that I want to point out right here in the designer is this is a what you see, what you get designer. So the form that you're designing here, that's exactly how it's going to look at your front end. So that certainly helps for designers and when people have to maintain and add or remove fields.
Well, if that's the case, Mandeep, so in looking at what you're showing us, if it's what you see is what you get, and what we're looking at right now is what the end user is going to see, so our visitors on our website, what if I didn't want the first name and last name right next to each other? What if I wanted some other view?
So you could drag a text box, and you could have called it first name. Drag another text box. You can call it last name. So you still have the basic fields, which would make up any form. The full name is something what we call common fields that people would use on an ongoing basis. For example, let's say a phone number. And usually you would have area code and phone number, but if you're living in a country where area codes are not normally segregated for the phone number, then you can go ahead and use the input mask option, and then you can specify, I want the phone number to be in that particular format. As you can see,
that's pretty awesome. Just so you know.
the whole idea here, like I said, with the common fields is these are the things that we expect most forms to use. So why go through and add text box and keep dragging and keep adding your validations when you can just do a couple clicks and be done with it? So I'm gonna go ahead and take this out, and that's another thing to show. If you want to ever do sorting or change the layout, it's a simple drag and drop here as well. So and if you don't want a field, you can just get it out from here.
So I have another question about like the kind of WYSIWYG approach that you've taken here. If I have, as a designer, have made my text boxes look a little bit unstandard, does this observe like the changes in my design that I already have employed?
So let me understand the question right. Basically, you're saying, will the theme CSS take over in terms of design? Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay. The answer to that question is yes, it would. If your skin wasn't if your skin was targeting all the form elements, it would certainly interfere. But I believe the way we've designed our themes is that we still go ahead and override that, and we want our look and feel to supersede versus your design theme. The way we approach that, and if you want these to look different, is we recommend that you go ahead and create your own themes for live forms, and that's right here. You can simply change the default into any other theme, and that's just a matter of copying the style sheet and overriding it. That works really well because then you don't have conflicts. That's one of the things we learn as a vendor, which also sells one of the top skins and one of the top modules, is that a lot of time the clients have conflicts between skins and different modules, and the best way to solve that problem is to make sure that you have CSS scopes and you're segregating your content and you're not unintentionally stalling things you didn't want it to stall. So almost all of our modules come with an option to select their own theme, including live blog and other modules that you might be familiar with. You can go ahead and switch a look and feel by changing their theme. So some of our Porto is one of our skin, and it will be getting an update in near future where it will have a matching live forms theme. So if you have live forms and you have Porto, you would just change the theme here to Porto, and now live forms look like the Porto styling. So that's our approach to how we would handle that. Does that answer your question?
Yep, absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, great. So full name of subject, and I'll just say you can type in some description. Like I said, if you wanted this to be bigger, I can say I want this to be 100 pixel. I want this to be required. This is to be. Some of the validation, as you can see, is built in. For example, I can say this subject can only be maximum certain number of characters. In a text area, you could actually go on to say, I want this to be 10 characters or words. So that also is built in. And then if you really want some of your own custom validation, you can certainly do that as well. But most of the validations are built in. Again, for some of the common stuff, let's say if you're using email, you would just drop an email and that would be email validated for you. But if you want to build one from your scratch, you could use any text box, and then there is a validation that you can get. You can say it has to be an email, alphanumeric, alphabetic, numeric, or you can type in your own regex. You can put in your own regex pattern and it will do that. So again, we wanted to keep it simple, keep it intuitive, but at the same time, like I was saying, we want to give you the technical features, the technical sophistication. That is a given. It has to function and do everything. So let me go ahead and also make this required. And just do a demo here. I'm going to hit save and return. And I have a form that's built. Its full name, email, subject, description that's being validated. Has nice animation scrolling in and out. Everything is localized. Speaking of which, Liveforms is actually multi-language, so all of this can be localized into your language, not just the static text. So just an overall, when you click on a field, you see the properties in the tab. and you can adjust things from that. These are your main actions to save and return. Here's some more options that we can go into. There's basic fields, everything that you need, file uploads to make any kind of form fields, some of the common stuff, date, time, and just an example that everything is complete. And when I say incomplete in terms, the date time will actually show you a date picker as well, so it's not like you have to do something special for that. So all the fields you get there. You even have survey fields, so if you want a matrix and you want to create surveys, you can come up with your matrix. You can say I want the number of rows, the number of columns, and it's really that easy. We could have made it technically very sophisticated, asking the number of rows, the number of columns, and so forth. But we're just basically asking you type in a value here, and you see your form update, right? As you can see, all of this is Ajax. There was not a single post back in any of the designer. This is all client side. So that's that. We do have page breaks and more, but I'll show that in a different way so I don't have to build the forms myself. If you go on our side, you see that we have a little demo here where we have the contact us forms and some job applications and event registration. So one of the features we built in is you could very easily copy a template. Every demo has a template in the back, which is kind of in line in sharing as well. Let's say I build this form and I wanted to take it to another website or give it to another client or just share it with the world. You can go to sharing, hit share form, and you got your sharing code. You copy and paste, and you're done. On that same line of thought, I can go ahead and copy a template from here, my demo, and I can say I want that template. So I'm going to say copy form, paste that script, hit OK, and I basically replace the form with what was out on the demo. Now, of course, for security concerns, the CAPTCHA does show up, but it's not going to let me save and return because it's going to say you have to provide your own CAPTCHA key, the site and the secret key. Of course, we don't want to share that along, so it takes into that consideration. I can go ahead and provide my own site key and CAPTCHA key, and I'll be able to save this form. And just put that in. I'm copying this from another window. Paste that in here, and now I should be able to save.
I didn't think you typed it in that fast.
So there you go. I have a contact us form that was pretty much ready to go and built, and it's done. I see all the validation, including the new Google reCAPTCHA 2.0. I can say I'm not a robot, and that will take care of that. I could do a quick form submission here to show you a couple other quick features. Submit. What you see now is a default thank you message. Of course, that can be changed and so forth, and we'll go along those lines. But when I now go back, the module will recognize there has been some submissions. So the first thing is showing you submissions. Every submission by default is saved to the database. You can go ahead and delete them individually here. You can also click and download the CSV copy of all your submissions. There it is. Oops. Activation failed. That's not good. All right.
We didn't see that. Don't worry.
All right. So if you want to change, you can go back to design mode, and there's your designer. So some of the other features is options. Like I said, we had that default thank you message. You can always write one of your own. You can whatever you want to type, you'll say, and you have your personalization where you get all your fields that you've used. Again, no specific names or tokens you have to worry about. It's very intuitive. Whatever the name label you typed is what you see here, so you can very easily say, like, hello, thanks for submitting the form. And you can just save that, and this is a thank you message I will see. Now, you can have email alerts, which is, every time someone submit a form, have it go to a notification or to autoresponder. I'm not going to go into detail of that. Instead, let me go something more interesting, and we have something called actions. Again, we want to give the complete feature stack for all the technical sophistication, but want to keep it intuitive. Now, let's say I want instead of the thank you message, I want this to be redirected to another page. I can say on form submission, I want this to be redirected. Well, I have a thank you message being shown, so I can't redirect at the same time, which is not possible. You can't show a message and redirect. So I'm going to get rid of the thank you message, and I'll say I want to redirect. And let's say I want, after the form submission, the user to be taken to google.com. Put action. Now what's interesting, I'm going to go ahead and edit that. This has a condition called always. It does that always. But I may want that to be based on conditional action. I could say I only want this to be done if the email contains google.com. And now I'm actually building my form using a rule builder. And this is just an example URL, but really basically is now where you use this functionality. Instead of redirect, let's say I wanted to send an email out every time there's a submission, and I can say I only want an email going to my sales contact when they've selected the sales text box, which we don't have. So let me really quick show that. For example, here's the options. We can say, what is this regarding? Is this for sales? Is this for billing? Is this for technical support? Now, if I go back to my actions, I can set up multiple emails, and I can say, I only want an email going to my sales if the user actually, see it says radio button because I just give it a label back here, is equal to sales, billing, technical. The reason I want to show this is you're not fiddling with any of the code. Everything is being generated, the UI is being generated on the fly for you. The end user never has to worry about any of the technicalities. It's just a matter of click and point. They can say if they've selected sales, I want this email going to the sales. And I can create multiple emails, one for billing, one for technical support. It doesn't have to be one condition. I can go ahead and chain as many conditions as I want, and then I can say if any or all of these conditions are met. I could say if the full name is empty or is filled, if the phone number is filled or not filled, if the preferred contact was empty equal. So depending on the field you're using, if I were to use a text box message, then I get more options. So depending on the field you're using, the UI is smart enough to figure out what are the conditions that are applicable. I could say if the message starts with, doesn't start with, and so forth. So pretty nice little rule builder. Again, that's very intuitive for end user to use. And they can use this conditions with any of the server-side conditions, adding security rules, executing SQL queries, sending emails, executing JavaScripts, doing HTTP post, or showing some messages.
So it looks like you've made this insanely easy for the end user. And that's not easy to say. I've used a lot of rules engines on lots of different websites, not just in DNN, and this is. Like you said, this is very intuitive, and as far as the design goes, for designers, for the most part, that's just all you need to do is it basically inherits the design that you have, unless you're doing something unique, right? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah. But when it comes to the developers, now we do things that in some cases would require development, but what if I wanted to do something even more custom as a developer? Is there some, for our developers in the ecosystem, is there some sort of extensibility they can take advantage of here?
Not at this point, Will. This is our first version of Liveform, so we don't have something that you can extend on at this point. We do have a concept of widgets coming in version 2 where you'll be able to extend. But I'm just curious. I want to know what kind of extensibility you're looking for. Just throw an example at it.
So like a lot of people with form submissions, it's not just capturing the data, but it's doing something with the data, and a lot of times they want that to be automated, right? And so I might want to, based upon a contact form, not only do I get the email, but maybe I'm adding them to a Constant Contact or MailChimp or something like that, or maybe I'm also putting them into MS Dynamics or or some other system. So in some cases that you could obviously have a connector of some kind, and in other cases I might need to build that because our implementation is so custom that that's the requirement.
Absolutely, and that's what widgets intend to solve. We will have that integration with some of the more popular apps out there like Mailchimp and Contact and so forth, as you mentioned. But we will also open that extensibility point. So as a developer, you can go ahead and do whatever you want with the data and write your own code. Along those lines, we had the HTTP post. So if you want to send that over to another external URL and collect the data, you could still do that technically. HTTP post will take the data and post it to a URL, and now you can take that URL data and do whatever you want to do with it. So it is theoretically still possible to do that, but it's going through a hoop of another page, which would serve as taking the data. Which we saw was one of the common requirements to integrate this with a lot of legacy systems that people have. Or you also have the option to take the data, the submission, and execute a SQL query. So you can be building your own tables and the data. So you could still write your own code, pick up the data from that table, and then do whatever you need to do with it in terms of passing it to Mailchimp and so forth. So even in version 1, theoretically we should still be able to do all of that, but version 2 will bring widgets, which will allow you to directly interface from live forms to an external application versus going through hoops.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
So will those widgets, Mandeep, will those be able to also so let's take an example for like image upload, right, as one of the form items. So there are lots of different ways you could do image upload, and some people may want to do an image captured from another site. Some of them may want to let someone pick an image that's on their existing website. Others may want to be able to upload an image, say, as part of a profile or part of some other image upload capability. And all of those, although they're images, they're very different ways of dealing with those things. So do you foresee the ability of other people to develop custom form field types?
Absolutely, and that's what widgets is. The idea is twofold. The one is the design end, where a developer can go ahead, and developer will get the full flexibility or freedom of expression, I would say, to design the UI in terms of the designer itself. So if, for example, you were picking up an image from, let's say, Flickr, you will be able to go ahead and do that, and then they will have some say in terms of what happens when the form actually gets submitted as well. So if they, in terms of, let's say, a payment widget, they would have them redirected to PayPal or another vendor for the completion process. So yes, that is foreseen. That's kind of built in right now. We've started working on the code, and we're hoping a release in about 3 to 4 months on that.
It's almost kind of like a pointed question by Joe, but I'll leave that be. We have a question from the community. Josh Slaughter, he's been at a few events. I've met him at least at one DNN Con. He wants to know if there's a way to show and hide fields based upon certain rules, because I did also notice a hidden option there myself.
Absolutely. So in actions, what we were looking at form submission actions. When a form is submitted, you have something called on form view actions. So you can say I want to show or hide a form field, and it's literally that easy. I could say I want to show let's say I want to show the preferred contact only if the new radio button that we add is selected to be is empty. Is equal to, let's say, sales. So let's add this action. I only want to show this preferred contact radio button if someone hits sales here. So if I add that action, let me close out of here. I'm just going to go ahead and save and return. And you can see that I don't see that preferred contact right now, but as soon as I hit sales, it'll appear. And you can go ahead and chain as many events as you like, and they dynamically update based on the expression result. If you look at some of the competing form modules, all of this functionality is there. We're not doing anything new. What we've done different is you don't have to worry about the label name. You don't have to type in equals to, does not equals to this and that, and fiddle with JavaScript code. It's all built in, and it's very intuitive to use with that form builder action. I can go back and I can say I want 5 more conditions to it. I want to match them all. I want a few. There's a couple other things. You can skip to a page or end of the form. You can require certain fields based on the user input. Let me show you really quick.
So while you're doing that, a quick question. So do you have capability to either show a different layout for the form for mobile, or can you create custom mobile forms versus the same form for desktop? Like, how much control do you give?
So Joe, Live Forms is responsive out of the box. You don't have to do a thing. It'll work just fine. And I can demo that to you right now. I just basically copied a job application template, and I want to show that it has the ability to paginate through different pages. But just to answer Joe's question, I'm going to go into developer mode and hit mobile here and refresh to make sure. And you can see that it auto-adjusted to the viewport. It changed the layout around, moved the labels up and down as it needed to adjust for the layout, and it looks perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing you have to do in terms of making mobile work. There is only one piece of configuration if you need to customize, and that is you can say under options, under styling, what is the default basic width, and if we don't meet that width, then we will show the mobile layout. So by default we're doing 768. Any device that doesn't have 768 pixels of width available will render as mobile. So if you want to change that, you can certainly change that option here, but everything else is automated. One more thing I want to point out, that is actually not a device width. For example, let me give you an example here. Let me move this to a right pane. And even though we have more than 768 pixels in device width, I don't have enough width within my pane to show it as a full size. So module is smart enough to actually go into responsive mode and adjust the layout.
That's pretty awesome, because a lot of people say like responsive out of the box, but they don't really say what that means, or in some cases it's like, yeah, we're responsive, but first you have to do this. So like nobody has to do anything here. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, like I said, our focus was completely, I mean, if you look at the tagline of the product, it says the easiest, quickest, and most intuitive form builder for DNN platform. And we could have put tons of other features that it's multi-language, it does everything else. But we feel like that's, like I was telling to you, Will, that we feel like that should be for granted now. In today's world, the feature set should be a given. Our focus is completely on usability and making sure the product presents well, it's easy to use, and it's easy to maintain. If you wanted to make this a multi-language form, there's tons of fields here. You can simply go to option, hit languages. I have 2 languages enabled, English and Spanish. I would say I want to localize this for Spanish, and now I can type in for every single field a translation, and it will work automatically. I have no idea how to say job application in Spanish, so I'm just going to say in Spanish. just to go ahead and prove that. I'll hit update here.
Some derivative of trabajo. I know that. I think.
And I'll go ahead and save and return out of this. And there's the job application heading. If I switch over to Spanish, that should go in Spanish. So I can go ahead.
Would be very disappointed in me for not remembering that.
So again, the feature set is built in. It's just extremely easy to use. And I think sometimes that backfires for us because we focus so much on simplicity and easy to use. A lot of people feel like that product does not offer a lot of the technical functions or features they would get in some of the other products which have 500 pages of manual. I mean, we've had people send us emails and say, your documentation is scarce at best. I'm not sure if your product will do everything that the competitor's product do, and I'm not honestly quite sure how to handle that, because we don't want our documentation to be 500 pages. If every single option is telling you what it's going to do, that's intuitive documentation, and I really don't see it for us to build 500 pages. A lot of the simple things like making responsive out of the box is we want to handle all these things for the user ourselves. We want to make those intelligent decisions. We don't want to ask for every little net and grid. I do see we're past 1 o'clock, so I'm gonna pass it back to you, Will.
Yeah. So thank you, Mandeep. So I just well, first of all, before I start, I think Joe needs to jump off for a meeting.
Yes, and thank you for joining us today, Mandeep. Sorry I couldn't be here to begin, but definitely well worth having you on, and we'll definitely have to get you back for a follow-up on some of your other tools. I know you've got a whole line of live content tour, live tools that I would love to see more of. So thank you for joining us today, and Will, I'll let you close this out as I have to drop off.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Joe. All right, so Mandeep, so I just had a couple of closing things. So one of the things that you mentioned was well, there's a couple things. So first of all, the simplicity. so there's another edge to that, and I can empathize with that, because at Hotcakes we deal with some of the same stuff. We have plenty of documentation for developers because they need it, not a whole lot for end users, and so we have some of the same issues. But the other part of simplicity sometimes is not realizing what to do just because I don't have to do these other steps, especially in our ecosystem where people are used to having to work to get something done. Do you run into any of that, and how do you deal with that?
I mean, like I was saying, a lot of people, we don't run into exactly the problem that it's too simple to use. The problem we raise is they assume because it's so simple to use, it's not going to do some of the things they're hoping it would do. For example, just like that rule builder, we still get a lot of questions. For example, just like the question we got through one of your tweets, you were mentioning, can you do hide or show a field based on a user input? And it's just very intuitive for them to set that up. So the way we've handled that is we have video tutorials or some of the video demonstrations. So a lot of our users, before they even download the trial, they see the video. So they see some of the ability in terms of the feature set that the product can do, and at the same time they get exposed to the fact that it's pretty easy to use as well. That certainly helps. Other than that, you will always have users which will have those odd questions and will need help, and for that we have a dedicated support system and help desk where they can open tickets, and we get them every day, and a lot of them, and we just have to handle that through that route. I really don't know how else to address that problem until the user actually picks up the product and evaluates it for himself. I mean, just looking at the face value, it always seems like it's very mundane, it's very simple. There's probably not a lot of technical sophistication in it.
Yeah, I think we're bringing people along. So I have another community question. Chaz69, I'm not sure who this person is, but this is coming from Twitter. He or she wants to know, and I'm assuming it's a he. Chaz is usually Charles. But can you do field calculations such as field plus one, or field 1 plus field 2 equals field 3?
Not in the current version. Again, the reason we don't want to put in, because that is fairly complex in terms of you would have to take multiple fields, figure out you want to subtract, add, divide, then take the result to a separate field. And the only reason it's not in version 1 is just we didn't get to it. It is on roadmap for version 2. It would be a widget which you can just drop, and it will ask you which fields to calculate and where to output and so forth. We would need to build a UI that is similar to our rule builder on that. And just for the sake of getting the product out to the market as soon as possible, that feature was not included. It is on the roadmap and should be there in about 3 months.
Awesome. So I have 2 more questions, and then we'll sign off. So one of the questions is, you mentioned that you have a similar feature set to other products that are out there that currently build forms. What would you say today is different between you and everybody else?
I think I touched on that earlier in the video. Is like I said, the feature set is there. The ease of use, the usability, some of the things that you just get out of the box without doing anything. Like you see, it's out of the box, is responsive. It has multi-language capacity. You can do some of that stuff without making a single config change or even setting something up. I think that's what makes us different. And in terms of just setting up these complex surveys using Matrix and other tools, which is as simple as just typing something that a normal user that has some exposure to internet and can navigate between different sites should be able to use and deliver. I think that is our differentiator at this point. I mean, I've downloaded some of the modules from competitors, and just the UI kind of overwhelms you. There's too much going on into UI, and it expects you to know the field names and stuff like that. And as you see in Lifeforms, you never had to type a single thing. It was point and click. So you never had. We're trying to take that away from the end user, that they have to actually give us an answer. We're trying to make it as automated and as seamless for them as possible.
Absolutely. So my last question that I have is and you mentioned a few things like the form calculation and some widgets coming. Are there any other like roadmap items for live forms that you can mention that that people might be excited about?
Certainly. So a lot of the integration within DNN is one of the things of version 2 is you'll be able to log into DNN using live forms. You'll be able to register a user using live forms. So integration, we have the ability to create security roles, remove security roles at this time, but we want to take that further. Ability to map some of the live forms to your DNN profile fields. So when they log in, those are mapped and so forth. We have other integration points like widgets where we will probably introduce some kind of payment along with that calculation. So normally when you're doing calculated fields, it's for an order, or a subscription or something like that. Okay, $20 for this, $5 for this, and $10 for that. So a widget will then allow them to transfer them over to either authorize.net or PayPal or somewhere where they can actually complete that. Ability to have PDFs of your submissions and be able to customize the layout of the PDF and have it sent out and so forth. We do have an excellent file upload capability already built in, which ties into our cloud storage provider as well. So that's taken care of. But we do have several. If you had asked me this question earlier, I'd pull my roadmap up. We do have. We also use Jira internally, so we have our roadmap that I can pull up and see what's going on. But that's all that I can think of at this point.
And for those that might not know, he just mentioned Jira. That's just a kind of an issue and bug tracking tool that is very popular today. And it's also easy to use. All right, cool. So I don't have any other questions showing from the community, and we're already getting close to 15 minutes over, despite starting on time today. It's messed up. That's not your fault. I'm not saying that. Sometimes
well, I think it's good. Well, it's good to be
on
on time and finish on time for a change.
Yeah. All right. So I do want to, well, actually, before we sign off with you, we do need to, real quick, just, upcoming events. We, of course, have DNN Connect coming at the end of this month. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it. My daughter is being very selfish and graduating that very same weekend. I asked her to, see if she can do one more year of high school, and she wasn't interested. So we do have that, and then there's next month's hangout is with a mystery guest from Microsoft. Then in July we'll have Mitch Sellers talking about extensibility in DNN, and then in August we probably will have Phil Becker. So if you're still watching the broadcast, or if you're watching one of the replays, you want to be a presenter, please feel free to drop us a line. You can contact me on Twitter at @WillStroll or DM me there, or will.stroll@gmail.com, and my last name is right there on the screen. And then also, if you want us to present one of your, if you have a site that you'd like us to highlight in one of the future episodes, please let me know, and then we'll get that up and running. So Mandeep, I want to thank you very much for being this month's guest. This was very awesome to be able to not just see you again, I see you every now and then at an event, but talk to you about some of the exciting things that you guys are doing that really are in some ways reshaping the DNN ecosystem, because usability hasn't always been something that module vendors in general have employed. So thank you for that, and thank you everybody else who's watching, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, Will. It was certainly my pleasure. Thank you so much. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.